Hello, and welcome to the CoStar News Hotels podcast. I'm Natalie Harms, reporter for CoStar News, and I'm joined today by Ken and Pam Cruse, co founders of SCP Hotels, a wellness focused hospitality company. And today we're going to talk about hospitality wellness trends for 2026. So thank you both for joining me today.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you, Natalie. Great to be here.
I'm so excited to catch up with you both today, and I think it's a great time to do it. I feel like we start the new year with so much of like our New Year's resolutions on our minds, wellness and travel being some big ones that I think people focus on. So I just wonder from, y'all's perspective, how's business going into the new year?
Yeah, maybe I'll take this one to start us off. We're a young company, although we've been around for a few years now. It's been a bit of a passion project for Pam and myself. We formed the company back in 2018, oriented around our core values, which can simply be described as healthy, kind, and green, hence the name Soul, Community, and Planet. Those are different ways of saying those same values. And we went about carefully pulling together a portfolio of hotels that we could recraft into destinations that would embody those values and represent this new brand. It hasn't been something that we've gone out and said we need to get to 50 hotels in 2 years and 500 hotels in 5 years. It's been, as I said, more of a passion project. And one of these things that, as we've gone along, we've refined the experiences, refined the positioning, the product type, the locations. Today, we have 10 hotels that are pretty diverse for a small little company. We've got a beautiful lodge in the Osa Peninsula of next to the Corcovado National Park in Costa Rica. We'll talk about that later in today's conversation. We've got the Oregon coast, Northern California coast, Hawaii, Laguna Beach, Colorado. So we've got a really eclectic, diverse group of hotels that are all falling under the umbrella of Soul Community Planet. What we think is working really well, or we're seeing work very well, is that when customers find us, they seem to really enjoy and resonate with what we offer and the differences that we provide. And we measure, our success in a couple different ways. One is guest satisfaction and net promoter scores. We tend to orient closer to 60 on a net promoter score, which for those of you in the industry who follow that metric, that's a really, really good indication of how strongly our customers align with the values and the experiences that we're providing. And we tend to penetrate our markets pretty well on the ADR front. We've got room to move on occupancy for sure. And then flow through to profitability is a really good third metric that we pay a lot of attention to. I'm just looking at the preliminary numbers for 2025, and our industry had a tough year. The industry was down a little bit in top line, and unfortunately, due to higher costs across the board, we're seeing our industry experience contracting margins and slower growth or negative trends on the bottom line. We're a little bit different. We've got a lot of hotels that are not sort of following the mainstream. They're all located in markets that travelers certainly seem to want to go to no matter what, whether it's a soft economy or a strong one. So our top line grew last year almost 5%, and our bottom line, EBITDA, grew almost 25% last year. Really proud of those numbers. Again, tons more room to improve, but certainly bucking the trend, if you will, with respect to how the industry is performing. And I think that's one of the probably the strongest validations and proofs of concept of what we're building when we see our assets and our hotels outperforming the broader industry.
Yeah, well, that's incredible. Congratulations. I think it definitely speaks to SCP really filling a need, and we're obviously going to talk about this later. But just the customer consumer interest in going to very unique places with that wellness focus. So very exciting to hear, and a great way to kick off the conversation. The impetus for us talking is press release I got about a new kind of brand wide evolution for SCP called Wild Wellness. And I think, first of all, the kind of phrasing of that immediately intrigued me. So I wonder, maybe Pam, you could tell me about Wild Wellness, what exactly that phrasing means and how it represents an evolution for y'all.
Yeah, thank you. Well, wild wellness is really another expression of how a CP brings forth the core values of healthy, kind, and green, as Ken noted. Our locations are located specifically intentionally in nature-based areas where there is the opportunity to engage with nature. And I will just sum it up as what is old is new. If you think
Mhm.
about the trends, they're not really trends. If you look at people wanting to go back to saunas and what the Finnish have known for years, the Norwegians, these interactions with nature are actually scientifically proven to help us feel better. And so the cycle continues. So wild wellness is a perfect opportunity for us to take advantage of the spaces and places that we already have and not complicate things. While we know that tracking wellness is important, and we'll talk about that a little bit more, with all of our rings and aura rings and different fitness trackers, it's really basic and back to basics is getting out, getting into nature, standing in the grass, getting in the ocean. So one of the opportunities we mentioned was the Laguna Surf Lodge, just a polar plunge, if you will. It's not even that
Mhm.
cold because it's the Pacific Ocean, but these opportunities to ground and the science is there, and you see it on every other podcast and all the books that are coming out that the nature fix, if you will. And that book came out years ago when we were founding the brand, the nature prescription. So instead of sitting at our
Mhm.
desks and staring at our computers, and even in travel, it's really important to take that time in nature and then also enjoy it and really maximize it, right? So the hiking plays many roles. The swimming is not the swim, it's for joy, but it's also the ions of the ocean and the air that you're surrounded with when you're even sitting on the beach. You're reading a book on the beach. And we can go into some of the specifics, but it really expands what wellness is versus wellness being confined to four walls and a spa and a massage.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that is something, with wellness's evolution within hospitality, it's so much more than just those four walls of the spa, which I know we'll touch on later too. But I guess just to kind of set the scene and you already have a little bit with that, notable growth that you've seen even in a less than exciting year that the industry saw. But why now for I don't know if you're referring to it as like a rebrand or just like a kind of a new way of pitching this and presenting this idea, but why is this the time? Why is 2026 the time for wild wellness?
Maybe I'll start and we'll tag team this one a little bit. As I mentioned, Soul Community Planet, we formed the company not to be like other brands. Somebody told us early on when we formed the company, "What are you doing? The world doesn't need another hotel brand. There's 170 recognized brands in the United States. Why are you forming another hotel brand?" And
Mhm.
my response to that has always been, "You're right. The world does not need another hotel brand. The world needs something that's very different, that aligns with the values and interests of holistic travelers, of conscious consumers, of people who want to live a more elevated life, not just when they're at home, but when they're on the road." And so wild wellness is just a normal evolution of the concept of Soul Community Planet. It's really not a rebrand. It's just a we're drawing out one of the facets of our business that we think distinguishes Soul Community Planet from the other hotels. And that would be probably the best way for me to describe it. Our programming and what we do is designed to highlight how we're different, not how we're the same, not how we're better at, having a bathroom and a good bed or whatever where everybody else is competing upon. We don't want to do that. We want to create a class of one with each one of our hotels where when you want to come and have a beautiful experience at dawn with a local surf professional, having a gourmet breakfast, riding over in a vintage Land Rover, and experiencing all these incredible natural immersion benefits from having something like our Epic Dawn Patrol, for example, in Laguna Beach, that's only available at our hotel. And that's a very, very minor example. I'd love to spend some time later in today's conversation talking about what we're doing in Corcovado in Costa Rica, because that is unmatched anywhere on the planet. But in each case,
Mhm.
we're trying to find these special programs, rituals, amenities, and experiences within each hotel that is truly distinct and different. So that when we're telling our story, we're not telling how we're the same as somebody else. We're telling specifically, here's how we match up with what you're looking for. And by the way, that doesn't align with all travelers. In fact, I would suspect that our typical customer is not like the typical customer who's traveling to a hotel. The occasion of stay, the desires, and the goals of their experiences are different from what you consider to be a traditional traveler, and that's okay. We're not going to try to be all things to all people. We
Mhm.
have a very special customer base that we're engaging with.
Yeah, just I would love to echo what Ken said about it's not that it's something totally different. I think it's being more recognized now. So when we founded Soul
Mhm,
Community Planet, it was based on this interconnection between self, community, and the planet. And we really looked at it, almost like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, taking care of yourself, right? So that you can therefore be part of a community, whether it's the hotel lobby community that you're in when you're there, the local community that you're experiencing, and of course the global community. And we always talk about, we now know, everybody knows we affect each other, and what we do on
mhm,
one side matters. And this, now the science is coming out even more, and I think just the conversations are there. And again, the analog travel movement, if you see a lot of people, and I just read an article yesterday that was that grandma activities are back, so people want to slow down. They are acknowledging self patrol of devices, if you will, not trying to lock it up, but to understand that we all can feel better when we're not on devices. And as Ken noted, every one of our hotels is different. So not every one of them has a gym where you're going to go ride the Peloton bike or such. So we're drawing out those experiences that you can do that include soul, community, and the planet all together. And then
mhm.
that science based knowledge of what that does for the body, the mitochondrial health, the quantum biology that we're learning about. We'll talk a little bit more about that. It's all really relevant, and travelers are seeking that out. And as you noted, it's January, it's the beginning of the year. There's a lot of visions boards going around on the internet. And if you look at, travel is such a beautiful, easy um, space to include on a vision board. And we have some great opportunities with this wild wellness to showcase what's possible for people and how they can feel better um, every day after they travel, and make it really approachable.
Yeah, we've definitely heard about this analog travel trend, and I wasn't traveling yesterday, but I was a part of the Verizon wireless outage that happened, and was forced into an analog afternoon. But I think it's so important to this level of like being able to disconnect when traveling. And I think we should just go ahead and dive into some examples of the wild wellness you have at some of your properties. Maybe each of you take a turn and describe one of your favorite kind of examples of wild wellness at an SCP property.
Why don't I start us off because we're right in the middle of building what we're calling the Wild Wellness and Rewilding program at Corcovado
Mhm,
Wilderness Lodge by SCP in Costa Rica. For reference, Corcovado and specifically or more broadly, the Osa Peninsula, which is on the southern Pacific side of Costa Rica, was just named by the BBC and the New York Times as one of the top 5 destinations to visit in 2026. And largely that was precipitated by the fact that it is such an intensely natural environment and so many people are looking to get back to nature. Previously, National Geographic named the Osa Peninsula as the most biologically intense place on planet Earth. It is home to 2.5% of all the species known to man. Right there at our property. And the hotel that we have there is surrounded by 450,000 acres of primary coastal jungle. And then it interfaces directly with one of the most vibrant marine ecosystems you'll ever encounter. So it's just such a perfect setting for this idea of wild wellness. And so, what we've created there, and we'll have our first one with a group of 10 CEOs, of very type A CEOs that'll be out there in February experiencing the first of these rewilding programs. And it's essentially designed to involve the sound and the movement and breathing practices that align with the circadian rhythm of the jungle. We seek to achieve better vibrational alignment with the ocean and the forest. There are different elements to this day that are each progressive, where we're spending an afternoon or a day, depending on the length of the program, in the ocean with professionals and marine biologists that we work with to understand the sounds and the vibrations and the benefits of being within that marine environment in such a again vibrant area. There's a whole terrestrial program working with the professional guides that are on property that help to explain what's edible, what's not, what are the medicinal qualities of some of the things that you can find in the jungle, drawing all the way back to the some of the indigenous practices that we know were incredibly healthy and were incredibly thoughtful in terms of how they utilize the resources that the jungle provides. We've gone through this whole centuries now long process of divorcing ourselves from nature, of building a built environment that is designed to protect us from, separate us from, and stand away from the natural world. And what we're finding more and more, as Pam just touched on, the more we can be immersed in the wild and become friends again with nature, the more health benefits we will experience from that. Two more touch points on this program that we're launching in Corcovado, which will certainly have DNA from that program that will be represented at each of our hotels. There's a pre-experience that that each of the participants will go through, where they work with a group that we partner with called Joppa Health, where there's a full well-being and wellness assessment before you come on property. Some of the products of that assessment will then influence what you're provided in terms of herbal elixirs and food and drink and exercise and movement. And then after you leave, there's also an ongoing engagement with both Joppa Health, Anima Mundi, and then of course with Soul Community Planet. So that it's not just a really great 1 week, very, very bookmarked or bookended, I should say, experience where you come, you have a great experience and you leave. There's meant to be real valuable pre, post, and lasting benefits that come from these programs beyond just the experience itself. So we're excited about that one. It is here again. It's going to be sort of a mothership, if you will, for programs like it at all of our properties. But Corcovado's rewilding sessions will be pretty amazing, I think.
Well, I think that's awesome. I think, we all strive to take these life-changing, trips and vacations. So that is such a great, thing you can provide your guests is this kind of lasting impression.
Well,
Pam, what about you?
yes. Oh yeah. One last thing. Sorry, I didn't jump on Pam's spot, but one last thing is at Corcovado and the Osa Peninsula in general, access, you don't take a highway to get there. You don't
Mhm.
have a major built environment with these beautiful mega resorts that you'll maybe find further north and so on. It is truly authentically natural. And what I like to say is it's the most Disney experience that's not created by man. It is truly created by nature when you're walking through and you see 8 blue morpho butterflies flying around you and all these blooming Halconia flowers that are far more beautiful and bright than anything we could grow at home. And you're seeing the macaws fly by, the toucans and stuff. It's just, it's like it was contrived again, like in the most perfect way. And yet it was not done by man. It's done by nature. And to me, that alone is one of the most lasting reminders of how spectacular our relationship with nature should be and how beneficial it can be. Sorry,
Yeah,
go ahead.
well, I'm just gonna say, Ken, your excitement for this makes me excited because I'm like, it's infectious how excited you are about this kind of prop. But yes, Pam, give us your example of wild wellness at SCP.
Great. Well, I'm going to talk about Mendocino. We have two properties in Mendocino. And from the moment we went to Mendocino, I'm fascinated for people who've never been to Mendocino, especially people who live in the Bay Area, because it's this amazing place. And the tourism board there, their slogan is spot on. It's Mendocino is magic. So the place itself, the nature that's there is amazing. On your drive, you're driving through the redwoods and just the sun's beaming through, and it's amazing. So um, there, we're doing some mushroom foraging, and so we're partnering with some locals there, so we're calling that the mycelial mine, if you will. There's a bunch of state parks right there around one of the first property, Mendocino, our SCP Mendocino Inn and Farm. So just based in nature, you walk across the street, the ocean's there. So there's just all these moments that are perfect for some guidance and also some DIY, if you will, for wellness. So in that area, we've talked about the mushroom foraging, and then we've talked about forest bathing, which I know has been around for many, many years from the beginning of time. But there, it's such a great opportunity to do a walk in the forest, a guided walk or a self guided one. But we have some instructors there taking people through the forest. And then you walk across the street to the ocean again on this preserve that's just amazing, beautiful coastal property, Northern California. We have a beautiful second property there called SCP Mendocino Coast Lodge, and it's right on the ocean. So while we talk about the blue mind, right? So just seeing water, that's scientifically proven to help us and feel good, and to sit with a farm to table dining experience overlooking the ocean is just magical again. So for that space and place, and really just again capitalizing on where those properties are, what is around them, and from the moment you wake up at Mendocino Inn and Farm, you hear the woodpecker pecking on on the tree. The sounds are amazing. And then we have 3 resident llamas there, and you can go out and have a little session hanging out with the llamas, and there's chickens there. So it's really that feel of being in nature, being with animals. A lot of people travel with their pets there, and they feel every time I talk to somebody there, they feel really great that they were able to travel with their pet. But these wellness activities can be expanded to customize, what somebody's specifically interested in. Um, but more to come there, but I really highly recommend that one as well. Love
Mhm.
Costa Rica, love Mendocino.
Mhm.
You're gonna have great benefits from both.
Yeah, I dare anyone to listen to this podcast and not feel like they need one of these trips to kind of go back into nature and see these really beautiful destinations because I've already got the wanderlust just talking with y'all, so I know listeners are probably right there along with me. I want to zoom out since we are at the beginning of the year to talk about some, wellness trends you guys anticipate seeing more and more of in the hotel industry. I have a few. I'm curious if you each have your own, but one that I've seen a lot, and I think Pam, you've already mentioned, but this idea of personal health and wellness, and we've got the trackers and we've got a lot of people focused on, not just doing the things that work for everybody and finding their own personal wellness journey. So, is this something SCP sees? Is this something the hospitality industry can, find opportunity in?
Yes, absolutely. And you had noted or Ken noted that we partnered with Joppa Health, and that was very intentional. One description of Joppa Health is kind of a conversion of mind body with function health. So there's the opportunity to do a self assessment. There's also an opportunity to do blood labs, do really personalized, customized assessments. And then there's amazing content from doctors and just so much content involved that you can also log in as a member and have office hours. And so while you can have private sessions and sign up, you can do these office hours where you're communing with other people and getting questions answered with an office hours kind of atmosphere online. The beautiful integration of everything that you're seeing talked about these days, the mitochondrial health, the need for sunlight and being out in daylight and the circadian rhythm and how much that affects our metabolism and our health. These are the broader themes, and then you customize it to what do you personally need. And then take that while you're traveling as well as after travel. This is very approachable, right? It's something that you can do every day. So we're very happy to be partnering with Joppa Health, excited about offering that to our guests, our team members, and continuing. There's so much content, it's just you could learn something new every day. And it's really curated from just highly professional resources. And it's really an important aspect of our wellness program.
Well, another one that I know SCP has on its radar, a lot of hotels are increasingly putting more emphasis on the actual designing of the hotel, and the property to include wellness. Obviously, we've got lots of spas in hotels, but you can really have wellness implemented into your design in different ways. So I wonder, how does SCP approach that? What sort of design elements kind of fall into that category of wellness design?
Well, let me take that first, and then I want to let Pam jump on that too, because we both spend a great deal of time
Mhm,
with it, knowing that CoStar is a really a real estate oriented platform. This
mhm,
may sound a bit contrarian, but a lot of the efforts that we're making right now are oriented around getting people outside, right? Interfacing with
mhm,
nature, to sort of taking them out of the built environment and creating new ways. For example, Pam mentioned Pelotons and the gyms, and that used to be just a requirement within hotels. Yet, if we can help to facilitate a different mode of movement and exercise that is outdoors, I think we're doing not only our guests a service, but we're also finding more efficient ways to utilize the built environment or maybe even streamline the built environment so we don't need to build a whole separate spa and gym and so on. In some of our properties, and again, I don't want to continue to dwell on um, Corcovado Wilderness Lodge, but we have a beautiful spa. It's outdoors. You
mm,
get massages next to a beautiful waterfall that's flowing from this primal jungle. You get all the massage or all the spa services and treatments and so on, but it's essentially outdoors. And we know that there's super benefits from that in terms of syncing up with the circadian rhythm and the vibrations of the jungle, breathing in the air that is in the jungle and how clean and oxygen rich that air is and so on and so forth. There's a lot of reasons not to be indoors. And so actually, again, maybe it's a little counterintuitive or contrarian to this audience, but reducing the amount of real estate that we're using for some of these experiences is really important. The other movement that I'm really excited about, and Pam is taking a great leadership role in this, is the idea of food, and food not just being something that we gobble up and zip onto our next thing. And I don't mean to pick on us Americans, but we're sort of the poster children for this, where the sizes are portions are much larger. The speed with which we intake food is much more rapid. Obviously, there's this huge issue with ultra processed food and so on and so forth in the United States. We're trying to shift gears and say food should be a reverent experience. Food should be a medium for connection with those around you. Food should be something that's mindful and slow, and something that you give thanks for the food itself and the people that were involved in providing that food to you. Somewhere along the lines, we lost sight of that whole process. It used to be a big element. The meal itself used to be such a big element of our social fabric, and it's sort of we've gotten away from that. We're trying to bring that back in a meaningful way across all of our properties. But behind the Terra Kitchen concept, which we have multiple different iterations of our food and beverage, um, our restaurants. I keep using food. Our restaurants called Terra Kitchen or some variant of that. In each case, it's oriented around locally sourced, minimally processed, slow food, and we think that that is such a great opportunity for us to facilitate connections and bring people back to this whole idea that food is not just about sustenance; it's much more. And Pam, I know you're super
Yeah,
involved in that as
yeah.
well.
Just to take that a little further, at Terra Farm Kitchen in Mendocino, we have an amazing sourdough crust for the pizza. So, everybody loves pizza, but we wanted to take it to that good for your gut, healthy. It takes longer. It's not something that, a regular restaurant or hospitality outlet can just pop in the oven. It's a ferment. And so we know sourdough is having a day as well across everywhere, but there's no seed oils. They use RO water. It's amazing. And so it's that intentionality that we can make pizza healthy. It's enjoyable. It's a fun experience, especially in the summer there. People are outside engaging. And so, yeah, quality sourcing, no seed oils, really knowing where the food is from. Super passionate about regenerative travel in the sense of helping our farming system change. And that hospitality buys a ton of food and a ton of product. And how can we help be that change in that area? So that's really important to us. I just wanted to add on to the designing of the hotels. So from day one, we were thinking about biophilia when we started the brand. So where there's cold places, how do we put plants inside and times a year, right? So on the Oregon coast, when it's raining outside, the lobby and certain common spaces have these beautiful plants, and you feel like you're in nature and you're looking out the window if it happens to be raining in the beautiful green trees. So you feel really nurtured by nature, if you will. I wanted to take it into some other parts of wellness, which is like mental well being and spiritual well being and connection, right? So just by how we set the spaces, it could be as simple as a hotel lobby. We have mindful quotes on the walls in many of our properties. Some people might read it and it resonates with them, others might skip right over it, but the intentionality is there. Another intentionality is for just mental and for joy is having games and books in certain areas. So when you go into an area, you don't have to pay for it. You can play with bananagrams with your group. You can play cards. There's a backgammon set, chess, really. And this really ties back into this analog movement as well, because people are craving put the phone down and gather together. So spaces for connection, whether it be with self, so starting with soul, or with others, or the planet, is really intentional both indoors and outdoors at SCP.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, those are some of the big trends I think we're seeing in wellness and hospitality. Any other trends come to mind to each of you that you're seeing maybe more and more of that you expect to see a lot of in 2026?
I'm seeing a lot of the social aspect of communal saunas, for example, and you'll see
Mhm.
this everywhere from like New York City to other places, or you can rent one of the cedar spas or saunas and sit it in the parking lot somewhere if that's the case, right? I've seen this through co working spaces, I've seen it through hospitality, I've seen it for retreats. So I don't think that's going away. There is this um, this change in the nightclub scene and everything. People are turning towards wellness and doing run clubs and, the communal sauna. And maybe not all of us think that's something we would do, but it's a trend. It's happening. People are
Mhm.
craving it. And I see more and more businesses responding to that. In Mendocino, one of our epic experiences last year, we had have a sauna tent. So they go do a cold plunge in the water there, and then there's a local that we rented these sauna tents, and there was a retreat where people came out and loved this interaction. So kind of that hot and cold elements. I would just go back to the analog side of things, continued, personal health to your point about people want to know how they're doing themselves and what they can do. And then back to basics, waking up, getting outside wherever. When you travel, the most important thing is getting on the schedule of where the sun is at that point. And so getting out in that circadian. And so properties and businesses that can help a guest get out easily and have
Mhm.
access to trails or wherever it may be on property, I think that's going to become even more important.
Can anything we're forgetting?
No, not necessarily forgetting. I would just say that the biggest trend that I'm focused in on is this continued de-emphasis of what we would consider the traditional 9 to 5 work environment, and this re-emphasis of a much more fluid, much less structured world where people can accomplish what they need to do professionally, and but then do it in the context of advancing many more of their personal life goals, instead of dedicating their entire life, to these what was euphemistically called 9 to 5 jobs. Many of us remember a time when it was like 7 to 10 jobs, 6 days a week, if not more. And I love that we're shifting away from that. And I think that technology, we talk about analog a lot, but the fact is, technology is enabling us to shift more toward an analog lifestyle. The fact that we can be so much more productive, we can do so much more, with so much less time, and do it in a more accurate way. I think we're coming up with better decision making, better productivity, all the things that we need to do to run a successful business, but we're doing it in less time, and that frees up everybody to be a little bit more nature based, and as Pam said, analog.
If I can add on to that, I would say authenticity, and that is part of wellness. And agree. We use AI every day. I mean, AI is here and it helps. And in our company, culture is a huge part of our company. And so every week we go through a practice, if you will. And last week was about effortless, which was a book written by um, McCowan. I forget his first name.
Greg McCown.
Greg McCowan. Thank you. And so if you think about it, if we can make things as effortless as we can. So think about travel, the friction points for a guest to be able to stay on their wellness journey, whatever they started at home. We do want to help them if they want to ride a Peloton, if that's able. And if not, they're going to get outside and be able to do other things. Analog is there because we can use technology, to your point, Ken, and then
Mhm.
have it this extra time to do the travel, to be on property, to get outside, to do those other opportunities. And I will say, we talked about awe. Awe was something that when we founded the brand was really important. I was fortunate to listen to Dacher Keltner speak one time, and he's written books on awe. Um, and it's the beauty of a simple moment. It could be looking out at a field and, the blades of grass. It could be, your morning cup of tea. But awe is that pausing. And so when I say analog, it's taking those moments and helping and create those moments for guests where they can have that time for themselves. Again, back to soul, community, and planet, because they all feed together. They're concentric circles. So
Yeah.
I just see more and more of the analog being such a positive. And I
Well,
actually saw
and
something yesterday that said, "Why are we craving the 1970s?" I thought that was very funny.
or even earlier.
Yeah.
And the last point I'd make on that topic is that, we tend to vilify technology, and we have this sort of negative scenario where technology creates a more and more isolationist society where we're all just individuals doing our own individual things, living in our own meta space. I tend to have a much different view of the world, and my expectation is that the technology that's helping us to be more productive is also now going to open up the doors for us to become much more social, much more interactive with other human beings, not just nature, as we just talked about, but also with other human beings. And let's face it, human beings are social creatures. What we provide in our hotels is spaces for people to connect and celebrate life and celebrate those epic adventures, as Pam was saying, that they just engaged in that day. clink their glasses around the fire and celebrate those unscripted moments. That's what we're about, and that's what we're so fortunate to be able to provide within our hotels.
Hotels from day one have had rituals, right? And so the rituals have changed a bit, but they're also kind of circling back where having tea is, was a ritual. It might have been something that was very English, but now look at, the apothecary, like we've partnered with Anima Mundi Herbals. And there's these amazing teas and that intentionality to take time. So whether it's at happy hour, which we have something called Opera Adventure, where we want to have that clinking of the glasses moment where people
Yeah.
can come back and commune. At Salashan Coastal Lodge, for example, in Oregon, the fire pits outside, whether it's chilly out or not, people are so excited to sit around the fire pits and you'll meet somebody, right? So that's that connection. So again, from another trend, if you will, it's just people are craving connection. And we're just really excited for what we can prompt people to do together and also unprompted, unscripted.
Yeah, I definitely feel like the takeaway of our conversation is this idea that what's old is new again. Newer technology can open up some travelers and some people to experience more IRL and more people to people interaction, more nature interaction. So I think that's given at least me and I know our listeners a lot to think about. So I really appreciate both of you joining me today to talk about SCP and also these kind of bigger wellness trends we're seeing. I super appreciate it. It was a great conversation.
Thank
Thank
you,
you, Natalie.
Natalie.
I'm Terence Baker, News Editor, Europe, Middle East and Africa, and I'm the host of The Upgrade, a CoStar News Hotels podcast for the EMEA region. In it, I discuss with special guests the pressures, challenges, joys and exhilaration that comes with managing, owning and developing hotels in our glorious multifaceted industry. Discovering the EMEA region from the scenic northern shores of Norway to heights of Table Mountain in South Africa, and most likely some chat about birdwatching, distance running and the English Premiership. Join us wherever you find your podcasts, on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify and on other platforms.
This episode of the CoStar News Hotels podcast was recorded on January 15th and was edited by me, Natalie Harms. Find all hotel industry news at costar.com/hotel news. Subscribe to this and all CoStar News Hotels podcasts wherever you like to listen.